Well, thank you everyone so much for joining. Happy Wednesday. We're almost at the weekend. My name is Pablo Espinoza. I'm a customer success manager here at ChartHop, and I'll be leading our solutions session today, specifically focused around compensation reviews. Alex, if you wouldn't mind going over to the intro slides. So we have our wonderful guest here today, Nanea Fujiyama, who is the Director of People at Altruist. She'll be answering a few questions just around our compensation solutions, how they've been handling ChartHop, specifically around that module. And we also have my fellow colleague, Neil Sai, a Senior Solutions Consultant here at ChartHop, to demo a little bit of the comp tool itself and a couple new exciting features as well. So awesome. Thank you everyone for joining. Awesome. Alex, could you go to the next slide, please? So just to go over the agenda again, so we estimate this will be around 45 minutes. Feel free to submit any questions in the Q&A. We will be going through customer spotlight questions first, like I mentioned, a little bit of the demo, and then we can take some questions from the audience as well, either directed at us here at ChartHop, or if you have specific questions for Nanea as a customer, feel free to submit those at any time. If they are, messaged through the chat privately, we might just pop in a quick answer. But other than that, we can address any other questions as time permits. So awesome. Without further ado, we can jump into our Q&A with Nanea. Nanea, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you again for joining. So I wanted to start with a few broader questions just surrounding your experience with ChartHop. I'm just curious to hear what you were looking to solve when you sought out a tool like ChartHop, and why did ChartHop end up being your chosen solution?
Yeah, so it actually didn't start with me. It started with my colleague, Katie, who's our dedicated lead HRBP for our product design and engineering org. And when she started here, she kind of immediately recognized the challenge of being able to properly track who was working on what. We were using multiple different tools, methods, different people were tracking different things, and all of those different tools were almost always out of date or didn't include all relevant information, like who reported to who, if it was a full-time versus a contractor. It took time and manual work to kind of maintain those tools. And it also wasn't available to anyone and everyone to view that information. And so she kind of set out and trying to solve that problem and identified ChartHop as a solution there. And then kind of from my perspective, on the kind of comp and comp ban side of things, we were living in spreadsheets, as I'm sure a lot of HR people probably still are. And ChartHop was one of the only tools that helped us tackle both of those problems effectively. And we didn't have to go and find multiple tools to solve those different problems. So yeah, that's kind of how we ended up with ChartHop.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm sure everyone on this call at one point or another has felt the pain of spreadsheets. And so I'm curious to hear what specific aspects of ChartHop you find most valuable so far, besides what you addressed, and how they have made kind of a positive impact on you specifically in your day-to-day or just on Altruist in general.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Pablo, I could talk about this all day, but we are limited on time. So I'll focus on a couple things. One is kind of data transparency, or like the democratization of people data. I think oftentimes that lives with just people teams. But with ChartHop, employees have access to the same information that I do. And I love that I can direct them to ChartHop so they can seek out information themselves. And as employees have kind of developed this muscle, they've discovered new information in ChartHop that they weren't even looking for in the first place. So particularly with new hires, it's had a really positive impact on them being able to get to know the org and all the different functions that we have. So yeah, that's definitely one piece that we definitely find very valuable about ChartHop, and it's had a really positive impact on the company as a whole. And then for me individually, honestly, it's the little things that ChartHop does so well that I don't think are talked about enough. My colleagues will tell you that I talk about it enough, at least here at Altruist. So like, for example, like in the data sheet view, like just being able to hover over the top of a column and see a visual breakdown of the data that's in that column. being able to build a custom data sheet, all the different queries that you can do really easily. You don't have to be an Excel wizard anymore to have access to great data and information because of the tool that ChartHop has built. And so, it's these little things that make using ChartHop every day really fun and really impactful for me in my day-to-day work.
Awesome. Super insightful. Appreciate the answer as always. And then just kind of following up to that, I know you've touched on it a lot, but are there any very specific results or successes you've achieved since implementing ChartHop, besides the broader goals that you mentioned already?
Yeah, I mean, and we're here to talk about it today, but building on the data transparency piece, like a huge, massive win we had was our first comp review cycle using ChartHop. Like I can't, overstate it enough. It was an overwhelming success. We had like 100% of our frontline managers submit proposals on time without like a ton of nudges from the HR team. And again, I'm sure if there's HR people on this call, they can understand the pain sometimes of having to kind of be that tapping on someone's shoulder to remind them to do things. We didn't have that challenge with using ChartHop. Our managers stayed within the budget with minimal coaching and effort from our HR side of things. And overall, as a company, we stayed within our budget. From an HR and exec perspective, everyone was able to save so much time and energy administering this cycle, and we were able to put that energy into actually having really productive conversations around performance and compensation and making really fair and equitable decisions. So, from a specific results perspective, the comp review cycle is definitely, like, at least for me, because I spent a lot of my time on it, like a number one thing that has had a really big impact and a huge success since we've even first started using ChartHop.
Perfect. Well, amazing transition, super organic. I promise that wasn't set up beforehand, people. So the comp review sounds like has been an awesome success, which is awesome, the topic of today. So I'd love to hear specifically how the comp review process today using ChartHop improved in ChartHop compared to the tools or the processes that you were doing before.
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned spreadsheets already, and so just not having to spend time building, creating, maintaining, the time saving there is just invaluable. For our exec team, for our HR team, for our finance team, like we've all been able to free up our time with our comp review process compared to how we used to do it previously. And we were then able to redirect that time to have more productive performance conversations, have more productive comp conversations to ensure we're making the best decisions. We're not spending time like, oh wait, is that actually when the person had their last comp change? Or, oh, are they in the right, like what's their band, like where are they within the band? We had confidence that all of that information was just in the tool already. And so we were again able to repurpose our time to spend on more productive and useful things. The other big thing, kind of leading into that, is as a result of being able to use this tool, we were able to make more fair and equitable comp proposals and decisions. ChartHop helped our managers and our comp committee, like the team that approves comp proposals, by making it really easy to administer a budget and give everyone access to the same information. So like everyone knew what comp band someone was in. Everyone knew like the position within that band. Everyone knew the same pay history information, the performance rating for that individual. And then to be able to compare that within teams and make sure we were being fair across the board. That process was a lot more streamlined this time around because we weren't in spreadsheets and we were in a tool that worked really well.
Yeah, the budget pools has been a very, very popular feature inside the compensation module. So I appreciate all that focus. It sounds like we had very specific workflow processes that we wanted to address. I'm really happy to hear that ChartHop's been able to help you solve those. So kind of pivoting a little bit, it sounds like you sort of understood the pains of your previous workflows, but now that you've used ChartHop's comp cycle, is there anything unexpected, an unexpected positive impacts of using our comp tool that either surprised you or exceeded the expectations?
Yeah. One thing that kind of surprised me and exceeded my expectation was the adoption of the tool. Um, Meaning like it wasn't hard to get people to go and use it. Historically, it's been really challenging to get anyone to adopt the use of a new tool, even if it's like a tool within a system that we've already used. Change is hard for people, and so I was really kind of planning to have to spend a lot of time training our leaders to use the new tool. And like I had honestly planned to handhold quite a bit, and I ended up not having to do that at all. The tool was very intuitive and easy for everyone to use. Um, like we had like hour-long sessions pre-scheduled to have to like, okay, exec, are you feeling good using this tool? Like, you know how to view your team's proposals, you know how to reject them or approve them. And they were like, yeah, like we don't need this time. Like I'm feeling good. And that was, I'm like, whoa, I was really not expecting that. And I think that speaks to like the ease of use and the intuitiveness of the comp review module. So again, I was, speaking of time, like being able to repurpose my time coaching people on like the actual numbers that they were typing in, the actual proposals that they were making, and not on like, oh, do you know how to type, like use Excel well? So anywho, it was that was definitely a pleasant surprise.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think we can always appreciate time back in our day. Very valuable. Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. So kind of honing in a little bit on the specific features, we talk a lot about data control, transparency, and things like that with ChartHop in general. But in terms of the comp review, are there specific differentiators you've seen with our comp module in terms of access controls and visibilities that you felt helped with the process?
Yeah, so because when we were first evaluating ChartHop, we did look at other tools. And then even when we were looking at adopting ChartHop's comp review module, we evaluated other tools. And one thing that was like kind of stuck out from the beginning was like the trust that we had in knowing who has access to which information and the right information that they need to make their comp proposals. Because the comp tool is tied to the rest of ChartHop with like the org hierarchy and like the org chart that's already in ChartHop, I no longer had to stress about, again, access to information. There's no like, oh, if you have to set someone up as a manager in order to have access to this information, like the fact that the system just knows because of where they fall in the org, they should have access to these people's information, was a lot easier than in some of the other tools that we evaluated. Um, the other thing that I really liked though, kind of on that, like yes, it defaults based on the org hierarchy. But I really enjoyed that in the comp review module, we could still customize who was making comp proposals if we wanted to. If we wanted to only limit to, let's say director level employees to make comp proposals and not maybe frontline managers, we could have done that if we wanted to. We didn't opt to do that because we wanted to empower all of our managers to make their comp proposals, even if they only had one direct report or 10. But this feature was definitely extremely helpful in being able to take into account new managers. So like if someone started the week before we launched our comp review cycle, we were able to reassign their direct reports to the old manager and kind of have the new manager shadow the comp review process. Or if a manager was out on leave, the system made it really easy for us to reassign that person's direct reports to account for that if they were going to like leave in the middle of the cycle or something. So again, the access controls and visibility again, we're not manual like in a lot of other tools. They were kind of defaulted, but that allowed us to focus on where we needed to make customizations.
Yeah, perfect. You definitely touched on this a lot. It sounds like the experience has been pretty awesome from managers, frontline managers, directors, being able to have that, ease of control. Would you be able to share just a little bit of the actual feedback you've received from them? As that one great example with an executive who wanted to give you your time back, but anything else other than that?
Yeah, I mean, I already touched on the ease of use, but I just have to kind of say it again. Like, I could not believe how uh, like I had multiple leaders commenting to me about how easy the tool was like to use. But honestly, the biggest impact on our managers or people leaders was them feeling empowered and actually being able to manage their own budget. Like because they were able to manage their own budget, I think they all felt a lot more comfortable having actual compensation conversations. I think kind of, previously and even at other companies that I was a part of, it kind of felt like managers had like half a hand in comp proposals, versus with this tool, they truly felt empowered to make the proposals and make a smart proposal, because they had pay history access, because they had comp band access. And so because they felt more informed making their proposals, they felt a lot more comfortable having the actual conversation with their direct reports when they delivered the news about what their comp change was going to be. I think previously it used to be really easy to default like, oh well, HR said this, so like out of my hands. No, it was quite literally in their hands this cycle by being able to type in their proposals in a really confident way. As an HR team this year, one of our big things that we've been trying to focus on was helping our managers close we've been calling it like the knowing versus doing gap. Like, okay, managers often know what they need to do, but have trouble actually doing those things. And ChartHop's comp review tool really made it a lot easier to close that knowing versus doing gap when it came to making comp proposals. So yeah, big hit with our people leaders.
Awesome. That is what always we strive to hear, and we love that feedback. And then so just zooming out a little bit out of scope, more in terms of from a long-term perspective, how do you personally feel that ChartHop is going to continue to support Altruist as an org as you continue to grow as a company?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see ChartHop being kind of like our consolidated HR tool in the future. One consistent piece of feedback from employees that I'm sure many of us have heard, is how many tools we use as a company, like not just in HR, but across the board. And I would love from an HR perspective to not have employees feel that way about HR. I would love to reduce our HR tech stack, and I see ChartHop being able to help us do that by being like the primary tool for one-on-ones, performance reviews, people data and analytics, et cetera. Like there, one thing, especially over the past like couple months, I think Pablo in our calls, like you've done such a great job just listening to us talk about our pain points and then offering a solution of like how ChartHop could help solve that, even though that's not what we were really trying to do. So anywho, like that's really got our wheels turning about how we can better leverage ChartHop. Comp review was a great way that like very easily showed the impact, but I think there's a lot of other ways that we can leverage ChartHop as an HR tool.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate the shout out. And yeah, you've done an awesome job taking advantage of ChartHop, trying to use every corner of the tool to kind of make the most out of your employee experience, which has been awesome. So again, super thankful for all of your experience, your feedback, all of your insight. It's been super awesome working with you as your CSM, but I'm sure everyone on this call appreciates hearing all of the wonderful words and experiences that you've had with ChartHop's compensation tool. And so that is actually all of the questions that we do have for you specifically, Nanea. And so we can transition over to Neil, our wonderful consultant here, to kind of walk us through the compensation module a little bit and put an image behind everything that Nanea has been talking about.
Awesome. Thanks, Pablo. And special thank you to Nanea. Really appreciate all the time that you've put in and all the work that you've been doing with our team to get us ready for today, as well as the kind words. So appreciate all of that, and want to, as Pablo mentioned, put a little bit of context behind the words that the team has been speaking through today. I'm going to be walking through about a 10-minute demonstration of the compensation review module with a little bit of a sneak peek into our newest feature within compensation reviews, the collaborator role, which is going to be the HR business partner or finance analyst or anyone within the organization who needs to come into the compensation review process, but isn't a traditional approval workflow manager. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. Hopefully everyone can start seeing the screen now and should be able to see my compensation review in cycle for a specific manager. And today I'm going to start off with a very small example. Let's go through one small example to push us into the broader example with a VP level. In this case, we're looking at a single manager, line level manager, first level manager, who has a timeline view of where they are within the process. So when we go into our compensation review as a manager, what we're prompted with is either an email, a Slack notification, or a homepage notification that allows me to click into the task that is assigned to me. So that could be for performance reviews, that could be a reminder to complete a one-on-one, or for today's purposes, a compensation review assignment that I need to now make my adjustments for my particular review. And so I'm prompted with my timeline view. Once I click that link, I see where I am within the process, where I am, what I've completed, what's in progress, and what are the next steps going forward, as well as some of the other roles and completion dates that I need to meet. In this case, additionally, I'm prompted with some understanding of where I am from a compensation perspective. So as Nanea had mentioned before, being able to see and understand where I am from a budgetary perspective, specific to the roll-up that I have as a manager, rather than the broader team, and having confidence that this is the amount of cash available to me, along with some of the subcategories of that budget. So a total budget that's made up of a merit, equity, and market pay that's going to allow me to be precise in the way that I'm assigning compensation adjustments. I also get an understanding of where I am in terms of raise percentages as a distribution. I only have one manager and one direct report in this case, so this is going to be a small example, but what I'm prompted with is a lot of information that the team has provided to me as a manager, including the title, performance rating, and other compensation details. With regards to the base salary or the market raise, I'm able to either have pre-populated information that's based upon calculations like, hey, you got a 2 out of 3 on a performance rating in the previous cycle. This is the 5% adjustment that you're going to get. Or, hey, you have some understanding over what your previous base market raise was. Let's maybe introduce something regarding the adjustment regarding your location base or cost of living adjustment. Additionally, I want to know where I am in terms of a recommendation on the current compa ratio maybe, or range penetration, as well as what it would be if I do make this adjustment, as well as equity in terms of being able to issue shares if that is part of the budgetary consideration. So a lot of ways to control for a number of different compensation types, as well as full currency support to see, if I have a distributed team, I need to be able to, as a manager, understand the compensation adjustments I'm giving, maybe in my own currency or in the organization's currency or the currency of the individuals that I'm representing and making recommendations for. So for a small example, I'm just going to go ahead and submit this particular review, which gives me an understanding of where they were in terms of these compensation types, as well as where they are. And I'll move this along the process. I get a notification, you know what? This is going to go to my manager, TJ Johnson. And once I submit this, it's going to say, okay, your proposal has been submitted. And now it's time to shift over to TJ Johnson's view. I'm going to refresh to absorb that particular review within this process to say, okay, there has been one submitted. And now I'm going to be able to, again, be prompted with my timeline, as well as a larger budget and budget pools that make up that larger budget. We can see more consumption of the equity and merit, and market is being left up to the managers to address. And also a distribution of raise percentages that is more reflective of a broader team. So a VP level who has a lot of roll-ups will also be able to see that someone has given 7%. Some folks have been giving 5% raises. Some are giving 0% or are in progress rather. As a VP, I have the opportunity to do a couple of different things. In the previous example, we're just making a recommendation for a single level manager. But for a VP, they're going to be able to see proposed changes that they're going to make in terms of recommendations for their direct reports, but also proposals for approval. What are those roll-ups that are coming up through the approval workflow that I need to now make a decision on whether to reject, approve, or be able to edit myself if that's the way that the process is going to work? So for proposed changes, We can see, again, a set of employees where I can make comments on each of the line items, take reference details along with it, make adjustments, and also see new information. So based on what Nanea and Pavel were speaking to before, there's going to be information that you want to control for specific people. Your role, your access levels, all of that's going to carry over. And in this case, we're introducing comp band information for this VP level, whereas for a first level manager, we didn't want them to necessarily see it. That could include a number of different custom fields, as well as built out fields around compensation, reference data around performance, or in this case, compensation bands. So we can see some of those details around where they are from a band minimum, max, and midpoint, and any other details that I do want to introduce into this process. So I can make recommendations. I can also be able to approve a specific adjustment that has been provided to me. So here is that previous example where Leslie had provided a recommendation for their direct report. They had given the guideline recommendation of $120,000. So that's going to be the adjustment. I can go ahead, either reject or review. If I reject it, it will flow back down to the approval workflow process, and Leslie will get a notification that she still has more work to do on this particular review. If I mark as reviewed, I can wait for this one to be completed as well, and then be able to address the issues regarding this particular review. So I have a lot of flexibility here to take the time to address these details. But as you can see, a lot of this is predetermined by the administrative side to make it easier for the manager. A couple of clicks, make the adjustment, reject, review, approve, and then flow this process through to the next level. And as far as it goes for this VP level, they have an opportunity to also be maybe a final approver that gets a full team overview. Now, as a full team overview visualization here, what we are seeing is the ability to disaggregate that information and now think about calibration exercises, work to filter down to maybe specific comp bands, specific job titles, specific ranges, maybe only those who have exceptions or comments associated with them. So we can take care of some of the problem or outlier submissions that have come up through the process. So this is where we see a lot of collaboration in terms of being able to calibrate those adjustments and get the exact output that you're looking for. And as promised, I know we went through the manager view, a VP level view, but there's also a view here that has just been recently introduced called a collaborator role. As far as the collaborator role goes, they're going to be able to get a tracking of cycle progress. So you're thinking about the administrator, the HR business partner, a finance analyst, someone else within the organization who needs either viewing abilities, editing abilities, or submission abilities. So being able to come in from the side of an approval workflow, a hierarchical structure, and being able to address some of those challenges or issues within the process to keep the process moving forward, completing. In this case, we're waiting for a lot of different tiers to be able to finish up their process. But what I want to do is highlight this changes in approval piece. As a CPO, in this case, a chief people officer, I have the ability to collaborate with an individual that's been set up for me, TJ Johnson. When I go in to collaborate with this individual, I can then go into their particular workbook and then start to address the details that I have access to. So I've only been given access to make direct recommendation changes for TJ Johnson in this case. But now as a VP level or a chief people officer, I can also see the details of the other ones. So your access controls, along with what you've set up within the compensation review, will really determine the experience you're going to be able to provide to the different managers, VPs, et cetera, through the process. If I wanted to, as a collaborator, I can monitor this, make adjustments myself, go ahead through the submission process, depending on those roles and restrictions. But once I've completed this process, I can flow this up, submit it through, and that will be the completion of the compensation review process. So that's essentially the workflow starting from the first level manager, going into a VP level, bringing in your collaborator, which is our newest feature. And then once you're done with that, you're going to want to think about what and reflect necessarily towards what are the adjustments that have been made and how did we get here? So another way of thinking about the compensation piece is that there's going to be a lot of rich data that you're hosting within ChartHop that reflects the context of how people have flown through their different reviews over time. So what is the average compa ratio by level over time? Maybe let's see what's the average merit increase by location. Maybe we want to see the compa ratio by band or how many promotions we may be giving out during the cycle. At any point in time, we can control for what data set we're bringing in. So maybe I want to know what the current state is with our current plan. Maybe I want to know what's going to happen within a specific plan that has a hiring forecast, or maybe something with a compensation review adjustment that I want to take into account. So you have a lot of different ways of capturing and bringing in data to be able to then say, based upon the adjustments we're making, either before or after, how is this going to actually impact our business? How is this going to affect the promotions, the comp ratio adjustments? How do we think about pay equity when we do make these adjustments? And at the end of the day, it's really about the communication and ability to then produce out statements so that you can then communicate this with the rest of the team. So being able to take a template that you would see and script on the left-hand side through our support, and then being able to produce out a statement on the right-hand side, which will then collect all the deep information that you're pulling in from those comp reviews, all the data that's getting stored on the employee profiles, historical contextual information about where they were from a pay perspective to where they're going, as well as maybe even promotion information around different titles, bands, equity, all different capabilities within this context to be able to produce out the right information for the specific employee that you're looking for. So being able to preview that for every employee that you need to make sure that it's coming out right. And then also having a number of templates based upon maybe sales commissions for one or for the rest of the organization for the other. That's essentially what we wanted to show today in terms of the compensation review process, a little highlight and overview in terms of going from an approval workflow process, setting up budgets, being able to reflect on those, and then being able to get the information, the analytics out in terms of being able to see the comp statements, being able to see where you were in terms of comp ratios, seeing where the base salaries were, and then how you can forecast into the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Neil. Always appreciate a little insight and sneak peeks into new features as well. I'm sure we have a lot of people excited for the new collaboration aspect of that as well. So we do have a few minutes left. We are more than happy to take questions from the audience. Yeah, so feel free to fire away in the Q&A section, drop them in, and we'll be happy to address.
I think I see one question that came in via chat.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. I did not see the one in the chat. So the question is, can we adjust reviewers / approvers so department heads are the only ones proposing increases rather than all direct managers? Neil, do you want to take this one?
Definitely. Yes, absolutely. So the way that the approval workflow process works is really up to the end user in terms of being able to determine at what level do you want this to start off with. So we have customers who go all the way down to the first level manager that I had just shown in terms of a direct report first level. But we also have customers who start at the department head level. So they essentially set the workflows to all roll up in terms of the starting point as the department head. And then you have maybe a final approver, HR business partners, or finance folks who come in either as a final approvers or on the side as collaborators to be able to adjust or collaborate within that process. So you can essentially set it based on department heads. Maybe it's a combination of department heads and their tenure within the organization. So you can be very specific and flexible in terms of how you create that workflow.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, because I believe we considered this, but I think you can also do it differently by like department. Because like, for example, our engineering org is massive compared to other departments. So we contemplated like, maybe we'll let those frontline managers and all the layers above be able to propose changes. But then for other departments, maybe we'll just do the department head. But I think you could do that, right?
Absolutely. You know the product better than I do, but yes, absolutely. At this point.
I wouldn't say that.
Absolutely. So we do have customers who also do it that way, just like you mentioned, Nanea, essentially that same use case. You have a lot of people in one geography, not a lot of people in another. Maybe we need to be considerate of those different structures and also historical context. Acquisitions, different team expansions. Some teams are newer, some teams are more formalized within the process. So being very precise about what are those dimensions that matter for that workflow process. We can bring in that context in terms of the data around departments, teams, tenures, as well as just the context of, the company has precise processes that they need to maintain. Thank you, Nanea.
For sure.
Some great insight. Can give a couple more seconds for questions. I don't see anything else. So now is your chance, everybody. Okay, cool. Well, I don't see any other questions. So happy to wrap up a few minutes early, get you some time back in all of your days, just like we would do if you were to use our comp review module, as Nanea mentioned. But yeah, always feel free to reach out to our team if you have more specific questions, if you want to learn more. We're always here to help and to address everything. So yeah, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Nanea. We're always so grateful to have you on. Thank you, Neil. Again, thanks to the ChartHop team for putting this together. And hope you have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Pablo. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Nanea. See you, Pablo. Take care.
Bye, everybody.